Kumlan and Ablat Gemara. Today's Daf Yud is the Daf for Shabbos Cholamoid. We are up to Daf Yud and Aleph. We're continuing discussing Shlomo HaMelech. Like I mentioned last time, it seems there's an argument if Shlomo HaMelech, the women that he married, were they Megayer or not. And I'll point out some more references to the Gemara. As you can see, the Gemara sort of swings back and forth. Sometimes we laud him, commend him as if he was a tzaddik, and sometimes we disparage him. So we are up to the Yud Aleph, and 2 lines from the top. So it says in Pasuk, by Yigdal Hanar Vayevacheyu, that Shimshon Hagibur grew up and they benched him. By Hashem, what was the bracha that he gave to Shimshon? He gave him a bracha in his ability to create seed. What do you mean? Amosai kibnei Adam, no different than anybody else, his male member, but the seed was flowing. He was able to live with so many different women, and he was so virulent. Yikra Shimshon El Hashem. Shimshon called out to Hashem. He said to the Eibishter, he said, please remember me. Give me strength. This particular time, after they gouge his eyes, and he was tied to those beams. He says, Eibishter, just give me strength. Just give me this particular moment. Then come and nikam echas, so I can be able to take revenge. Achas mishtei einai pleasing. One of my 2 eyes. One eye for now, and the other eye, Rashi says, give me a bracha in Lasid Lovei. So here he's saying, give me a bracha for my eyes. On what basis? Rav said, Shimshon says, Lif Nekash Baruch. What was his argument? So the Rebbeinu Shalom. Why don't you remember the 20 years that I ruled over the Yidden? That was a shafet. I never said to anyone, why don't you do me a favor and take my stick from one place to another? I never took anything from them. I never took any bribes. And therefore, my eyes deserve the merit that they should be saved. And yet in the Mishnah it says that they were gouged because he lusted after his eyes. So again, the very same eyes that were gouged because of his lust, the same eye that he's asking for credit. So it seems there are 2 opinions as to whether Shimshon was a tzaddik or not. But continue. Shimshon went. He took 300 fox, and he took fire and he tied it to their tails and burnt all their crop. Why after this particular animal fox? Amar he said Shimshon Yavai, and Shimshon said that Yavai Misha Chayzel, an animal that instead of fleeing always steps backwards, and the Yiframu Plishtim and punish the Plishtim that they step back from their promises that they gave me. Shimon HaChasid being safe of Shimon, that the shoulders of Shimshon was like Shishim Amma. It was massive, and Tezerei tells a few times that the number 60, 300, a few numbers are words of exaggeration or embellishment. It says that they plotted against him. They were going to plot against him in the morning, but he woke up in the middle of the night. He woke up and he pulled the gates of the city with the 2 pillars, and by he took them with a bolt. He placed them on his shoulder. And we learned the angels and the doors of Azza was not less than 60 amas. It says that when they put him in jail, what do you mean he was grinding the Beis Hasurim in jail? He was committing Aveda. What do you mean? It says, it says over there that you should grind after. What do you mean? My wife will be grinding with another person. What does that mean? It means it's a nice way of saying committing a sin. What happened was every single guy, brought his wife from the Beis Hasurim to the prison. They should just so Shimshon, they can conceive for Shimshon. Sound again that Shimshon was not the righteous person that we think. If you hold that he was a righteous person, they just wanted to see Shimshon, just like the Gemara said in Brachas. Rabbi sat in front of the mikveh, and so that when we went out of the mikveh, they would see him, and when they would then conceive, they would have children who I guess follow the footsteps of Yechanan. So just by looking as well, and they not that they necessarily had relations with Shimshon, they had relations with their own husband, but because they saw Shimshon, maybe they would be blessed with a child like Shimshon. Amar Papa, I mean, this is what people say. But this lends itself more to the fact that they actually consorted together. Somebody drinks wine, why don't you give him wine to drink? And somebody's a gardener, give him all kinds of vegetables. Same over here, give him women. Said, anybody who has, who I guess, who commits adulterous affair while he's married, is also Ishte Mizanat Olav. His wife then in turn will do the same back to him. Shnema, as it says in Pasuk, Im nifta libi al isha, if I will be seduced by others against my wife while I'm married. Pesach rei Ravki, and I'm there. I hang around the doors of my friends. See, and how's my wife behave? And it says, my wife will then also have relations with other people, and others will bow down to her. This is what people say. If he holds on to a large gourd, she'll hold on to a small one. In other words, they behave the same way. They reciprocate each other in the way they behave. Amar Yechanan said, Shimshon don es Yisrael kavin shemishmayim. Shimshon judged Eden just like Hashem. Shenema, it says, don yodin amoy, that he should judge the people ka'achad. Shivti Yisrael, like one of the Yisrael, he brings everyone together. Amar Yechanan, Shimshon al shmoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shimshon, in fact, now we're saying that he was actually a tzaddik. That Shimshon is similar to the Eibishter in the Eibishter's name. Why? It says, Ki Shemesh Shemogin Hashem Elikim. Over here, Shemesh, Rashi says, doesn't necessarily mean sun, it means like a wall to protect them, and Shimshon protected Eden. El Ma'ativ, so if Shimshon is the same name as the Eibishter Lo Yimacha, so how come you're allowed to erase that name? El Ma'ain Shmoy is similar. Trace already says there are other names of Hashem that we never ask, how come you're allowed to erase it, like Chan and Barachim? But those are descriptive. And here it's more like a noun. And we say, no, it's Me'ain Shmoy Baruch Hu. It means it's similar to Hashem's name. Ma'akadosh Baruch Hu Megin HaKol and Kula, just like Hashem protects the entire world. Shimshon Megin B'Dodesh Yisrael. Shimshon protected the Eden. Amar Yechon. Bilam Chig B'Raglachad. Bilam was limping on one leg. It says Vayelech Shafi that he was going and limping. And Shimshon Chig B'Shtei Raglach. He was limping on two legs. It says Shafi fine in plural on the road. So we're trying to say that even though Shimshon was so strong and mighty and everything else, nobody is perfect, so he was lacking in other areas. There were 5 that were created similar to the highest spheres. The Kulu Lakamen, even though they all had great virtues or advantages, yet they all at the end were smitten. Those very advantages turned out that they became deficient. Shimshon, because his advantage was his strength, and then he lost it. Shaul b'tzavari, he had a beautiful neck, and he lost that. Doesn't want to explain. Avshalom b'sara, Avshalom had beautiful hair, and he lost that. And by Shaul, it describes him that he was taller than everybody else, and that's by his neck. Avshalom with his hair, and eventually got tangled on the branches. Tzidkiyo be'enav, Tzidkiyo had beautiful eyes. And Rashi says we don't know where we know that from, but nevertheless he did. And also beraglim, nor do we know that also had some special quality about his legs. He can run fast. Not the Rashi, again, we don't know where that came from, but maybe he heard it from his Rebbe. Shimshon, what happened at the end? He lost his strength. He took his sword and he fell on it and he decapitated himself. Avshalom Besara in his hair could have been a time we'll learn later on. And Tzkiyo be'eino, see what it says, Ain is Tzkiyo, Ivet, he blinded Tzkiyo, Nuchanetzar, and Asa Baragli, see what it says, like lazy Gnosi, as he got older, is Chola Es Ragla, he could hardly walk, he got sick on his legs. Amarav Yehuda Amarav, Shachaste Pedagra, that he had a disease called Pedagra. What kind of disease is Pedagra? Amal Mazut Berev Nachman Hechidam Pedagra, what exactly is it? Amal Kemachad Basachai, like a needle in flesh of a living person. Says the Gemara, how does he know what the pain is like? He actually felt it himself. Others say, God's secrets are disseminated to all those affairs. And he reveals to them all these secrets. Dorash Rava, Rava Dashin. Reman Nenesh also, why Taka was he punished? Like we had him on a donor with Avram. Also, Angari of the Necham, he went to war and he conscripted also those Tamil Chama who were learning. And in fact, he needed them to continue learning Torah to give him the support that he needs in the war with his army. And instead, he forced them all to join the army, conscripted them. It says, Melech Osei Shmiyas Kol Yehuda Einok. I don't want anybody to be, there are no exemptions. My Einok, people mean no exemptions. I'm going to be no Feel a Chassan Mechad, the Kala Chapasa, even a Chassan who just got married, and a Kala. It says that for the first year they should be together, with the use expression, they're Noki, and he forced them to go to war. When there's a civil war between Yisrael and Yehuda. Sivan says, Vayeded Shimshon Timnasa. Shimshon went down to Timnasa. Uksiv. And it says that your in-laws are coming to Timnasa. And there it says they went up, they were rising. Amr Blazer, Shimshon Shin is Ganaba. Shimshon, where he was, I guess in a way, this is where his downfall began. Siv be Yerida, that's why by him it describes as a Yerida, as a downfall. He was descending because he married over there. The Plishtim, and Yehuda, Yehuda, who married Tamar, had an aliyah there. So according to this opinion, yesterday we learned that in Aza, Shimshon started having downfall, not in Timnasa, which means, why didn't he have a downfall in Timnasa? Because he married a Plishtim, must be because she converted. Here we're saying that it was a downfall, means that we're saying that he was not converted. As I told you, there's two opinions. And you see the Gemara, how the Gemara swings back and forth. Here it says that in Timnasa reign is Gana. Interesting. The Teiz Rishan said yesterday, at the very bottom of the page, that she was not Megayah, yet this wasn't really considered, according to Gemara there, it wasn't such a gnus because it was done discreetly. Very difficult to understand. Either it's wrong or it's not wrong. If it's wrong, what's the difference done discreetly or not? And if it's not wrong, again, what's the difference? Another answer is, you know why in one passage it says that they had to go ascend the mountain to go to Timnasa. Another place it said they had to descend the mountain because we're talking about two different cities. One way the approach is to descend the mountain, the other one is the approach is to ascend the mountain. That means according to this, it has nothing to do with the downfall of Shimshon, because there was no downfall of Shimshon. That the woman he married in Timnasa actually converted. You see, again, the Gemara is arguing constantly. Now, Papa says, Choda Tamna. In fact, it wasn't in two cities, it was the same city. It depends where you're coming from. It's right in the middle of the mountain. If you're coming from the top and the summit of the mountain, you have to descend the mountain. If you're coming from the bottom of the mountain, from the mountain, Aliyah. You have an example of Ardonia Beibadi, the Sheikh Dinara, there also middle of the mountain. So it depends where you're coming from. It says by Tamar, now that you mentioned Tamar, so it says by Tamar that she removed all of her clothing of Almana, but Teisha, which is sad, because nothing was happening, that she was waiting for the third son of Yehuda to come and marry her, and nothing was happening. So Vatesha Pesachanai, she sat there, the Pesachanai. What exactly is Pesachanai? She sat there by the doorway of Avram Avinu, of his house. So people used to come just to see Avram Avinu. And they used to reside there or spend there some time, and they all loved going there. That's called Pesach Einayim, a place where people's eyes were yearning to. It's a place called the entrance to Einayim. It says in the pasuk, Tafuach ve'Einam. So it's a place called Einam. She gave some basis of credibility to her words. When she demanded, she gave explanations to Yehuda why Yehuda was able to engage with her in having an intimate relationship. Amala, he said to her, he said, maybe you are a non-Jew. I'm like, I converted. So I no longer worship Avodah Zarah. Shema, even if there's no status of a Yid prior to Mantreda, but I no longer worship Avodah Zarah. So Shema H, maybe you're married. I'm a single woman. Shema Kibul B'Chaviyah Kedushin, maybe even a single woman, but your father might have accepted Kedushin on your behalf. Amrullah, she said, Yisaymani, I am a Yasim. In other words, she got married when she was under Bas Mitzvah, and only her father has the right to marry her off, not her siblings or her mother. And they did, she's not married, which basically he's saying is, I was never married to your other two sons, and therefore I am permitted to you. That's the version of the Gemara here. And then Rashi points out that if so, the years don't calculate. We usually say that she's a daughter of Shem, which is impossible, because Shem passed away 50 years before this whole event, and she couldn't have been a Ktana. So different midrashim to explain who she was. And interesting to note that the Ramban says that she was married to the other two sons, and the whole basis for her marrying Yehuda was the laws of Yibam. And prior to Matan Torah, the laws of Yibam were not just horizontal, but also vertical. 2 generations. The father-in-law with the daughter-in-law, also there's an union of Yibam. Shema Tmeyat, maybe if you're Nida, unrelated to her, no, I'm actually Torah. I'm not a Nida. Vayita Eishel beBe'er Sheva, planted an Eishel in Be'er Sheva. Avraham Avinu planted an Eishel Be'er Sheva. And what does that mean? Amar Shlach Malam, what's an Eishel? Also Pardes, made an orchard. The not by coming Magadim, and planted all kinds of wonderful fruits. Yudah and Nechem Yechadam Pardes was an orchard. Chadam Pundik was actually a hotel. Bishlo Madam Pardes is an orchard. Haneksi Vayita planted. Ella Madam Pundik was a hotel. My Vayita. What do you mean planted a hotel? So we say, yes, we find that expression because we see what it says, Vayita Ahalei Avdanu. That he planted the tents of Avdanim. So they see that we do find, even by tents, by structures, also the expression Vayita. Then it says in the passage about Avraham Avinu, Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem. He planted this Eishel in Be'er Sheva, and there he proclaimed the name of Hashem, Kev Elam, the God of this world. That he proclaimed, Elavayati. He made others as well recognize this. Avram Avinu was able to convince every passerby and to bless Hashem. How did he achieve that? After they ate and drank, they wanted to thank Avram. You think it belongs to me? Everything belongs to Hashem. They went and praised they benched to Hashem. That's our version of the Gemara. Tosha brings a medrash where actually those who refused to thank Hashem, he would charge them an exorbitant amount of money, and as a result of that, they would bench Hashem. It says in Pasuk that Yehuda saw Tamar, and he thought that she was a harlot. Why did he think that she was a harlot? Her face, she wore a veil, couldn't recognize him. Says the Gemara from the Kisa Paneh, just because her face was covered, that means automatically she's a harlot. Not that she covered her face now, because she covered her face earlier on when she lived. She was so discreet and so tsunua. When she lived by Yehuda, he never really knew her, never even saw her. Anybody, any daughter-in-law who's modest in the house of father was merit that they will have zeicha to have children who will be kings and prophets. No, how do we know that? Mitamar, Novin Tamar. The Vim the Chesiva says Chazon Yishayahu ben Amatz. Yishayahu, the son of Amatz, was a Navi, and Melachim, king from David. And also we know that Amatz and Amatzia were 2 brothers. As Roman of Levi David and we have a tradition of the saying Amatz and Amatzia, Amatz and Amatzia, 2 brothers, and therefore we see that the king, the royal family, and the Navi both came out from Tamar. Says the Gemara, says the Pasuk, he would say she was dragged out. What do you mean if she was dragged out? It sounds like the word Motzes actually means she was found. It should have said he misoitzas, that she was dragged out, she was forced. And they said, oh, it looked like you were pregnant, and if you're waiting and you're single, how in the world you become pregnant? What happened was after she found her simonim, the stick of the staff and so on, the simonim that she found, these were the simonim that she took as a security from Yehuda. So and the ring and the staff and the shirt. Bas Samuel came along Samuel, and this would have proved their innocence. Came along Samuel, and he tried to distance them away from her. Well, Gabriel came along, and brought them back together again. Kind of see, and interesting, the word Samuel, it says in the Sfarim, is the Rosh Tevah. Samuel is the Malach who represents Esav, and the Rosh Tevah, or the word Samuel is Siyum Besechta Ein Lases. The one thing that he detests more than anything else is that one should not learn Daf Yomi, and one should not complete Mesechtas. So, but Gabriel came and brought them back together again. And this is what it says in Tehillim, Lam Natseach. It says that Al Yenas Elam. This is what we sing, Al Yenas Elam, for the dove. This is the conductor for the dove Elam that is who's quiet chaykim that was distant with David to David Michtam. What's the word Michtam? We'll soon see. The moment that the simana was taken away from her or distant from her, she became quiet. With David Michtam. What do you mean with David Michtam? She yatsa the man of David, that she was zeicha that David was a descendant of hers. And what does Michal do with David? Shayamach v'tam l'chol David, that he was very humble and he was in every regard. To everyone. That the wound every child has, a bris, was complete. David HaMelech was born when he was already gemalat. David Achar, another, so therefore he was complete, didn't have to, that's Michtam. David Achar, another pshat. The Michtam Kishenshi Bekatnusay Hiktim Atzma Asa Misha Godam and Libmatus. When he was young, he used to humble himself and learn to from everybody. Kach Begatlusa, the same thing, even when he got older and he became a king, he still was humble and prepared to learn Torah from everyone. He sent off to her father Lema to say the following: she didn't reveal that it was Yehuda. She just said the person that these items belong to, that's the one that caused me to conceive and fall pregnant. The Taim Lemem, why didn't you just say it outright? I'm going to say, I'm going to say, I'm from heaven and earth. It is better for a person to toss themselves into a fiery furnace while and don't embarrass your friend. She was ready to die if he wouldn't reveal. It's a little bit hard to understand here because she was just passive. She didn't throw herself in the fire. They were going to kill her. She had to proactively reveal Yehuda's name. So it's got traces in the Shem asks, why aren't we counted to say 3 Avedas a person has to die for? And that is, Avodah Zorah and Gilaroi and Shvichatomim. Why don't you also add this one here, which is that you shouldn't embarrass somebody, you should die rather than embarrass somebody. So Tesis, by asking that question, clearly takes the Gemara literally, that one has to be prepared to die rather than to embarrass someone else. Some say it's included in murder. That's exactly what you do. And when you embarrass someone as if you're murdering them, Tesis answer is not mafurish in the Torah. So that means he agrees also that you have to be prepared to die. And others learn it doesn't mean literally that you have to die, just an expression. Hakeno recognize this. He used that term, recognize this when he sold Yosef. So therefore he was punished. The same thing here, the same thing over here. She said, recognize these things. He said to her, Yaakov, tell me this tunic belonged to your son. See, tell me, you know who this is. No, please, she was begging Yehuda not to conceal the truth. She said, I ask you, recognize the Creator, and don't stand there and be silent. She's right. We did not follow Potiphar's wife, and no one was aware of it. It was done discreetly. He's called Yehoisef. Added one letter to his name. He revealed it in public to say that no, that was not for me. The entire name of Hashem is found in Yehuda's name. So now Shema is Baruch Hu. As soon as he confessed, Baskal came out of heaven and said, you just saved and spared Tamar and 3 children from being burnt at the fire, at the furnace. I swear, in that merit I will save 3 of your children, your descendant in the fire. And who were they? Maninu, Hananel, Mishael, Azariah. Tzadka mimeni, she is right. How does he know that this child is his? Maybe just like she had an affair with Yehuda, maybe she had an affair with other men as well. Because Yotza Baskal, a voice rang out of heaven. Amna said, "Mimeni Yotza Kushim, these secrets I will reveal that this is actually Leah's child. Yosef oid data, and it didn't continue data to her, to her knowledge. Amar Shmuel Sava Chamud of Shmuel Barami, Shmuel, the old one, the father-in-law of Rab Shmuel Barami, Mashmei the Rav Shmuel Barami said in the name of his son-in-law, Kim Yoda. Once they had relations, like Pasuk men, it didn't stop anymore. Here it says they didn't continue anymore the daita in her view. It says Hasan Kogadol Yosef. But it says there was a loud voice rang out and it never stopped. It didn't cease. Same here, Yosef means didn't stop. Interesting here, you see that Shmuel Sava had a son-in-law called Shmuel, and Rabbi Yehuda Chassid says, you shouldn't have the same name as your father-in-law, and here we see clearly that he did, both called Shmuel, unless you want to say Shmuel Sava is actually his name, became part of his name, so therefore it's not an identical name. Avshalom is God beside Avshalom pride himself with his hair. Avshalom besadi mother, and he rebelled with his hair. Remember, it says Avshalom lahay ish yafer. There wasn't a more handsome person like Avshalom with his hair. Well, the Golches Roisha, when he took a haircut, he indicates Yomim Liyom, took a haircut once a year. Actually, Belech, and this big machlek is a training we had, whether it's only once a year or once a month. He covered Olav because his hair weighed a lot. The Golcha, and he shaved it off. His Shakal Asar Roisha, and the weight on the head of his hair is Mosayim Shkolim Evan Melech. There's 200 Shkolim in the weight of the king. Kana Evan, what's Evan Melech? Evan Sha'anshit Tveria, Anshit Tveria Shekel. These are the stones that the people of Tveria and Tveria they use to weigh other things. Because he prided himself with the hair, that's why he was strung up by his hair. It's interesting. We learned in Gemara in Durham that Shimon HaTzadik said that he was very impressed that when a person's motivation to become a Nazir is that eventually will cut his hair so that it wouldn't become vain. And here, Avshalom Dafka became a Nazir in order to have long hair because he didn't want to be vain, which is ironic. So he was strung up by his hair. Shenema, it says that Avshalom called before the avodim of David. Avshalom reichel al Pered, and Avshalom was riding on a mule. And the mule came under the tree, the large tree. And somehow his hair got entangled in the branch. He was suspended between the heaven and the earth, and the mule left. He took his sword and he wanted to cut himself off. But at that moment, suddenly the earth opened up before him. He saw the Gehenna. So he didn't cut himself off. And then Yoav came with his henchmen and they killed him. And the king was very upset. He went up to the gate and to the gate. And he cried, this is what he said. B'ni Avshalom, he said, B'ni Avshalom, B'ni Avshalom, I wish you would have put me, I would have died on your tachtach instead of you, Avshalom, B'ni, my son, my son. Melech Loat, the son of Yitzhak, and he cried the whole time, Melech Kol Gadol, cried out, B'ni Avshalom, Avshalom, B'ni, Hani Tam the B'ni Lama. Why do you say 8 times the word B'ni? Shiva to ask him, Shiva in Gehenna 7, he pulled him out of Gehenna, the Idach, and the other one, others say, what was the 8th B'ni? Either Ikadami the Korav because he was decapitated and miraculously the head came together with the body. Ikadami the Aisalam, thus he brought him to Gan Eden. And Avshalom took, he made a monument for himself in his lifetime. My luck, when he took me, he dealt himself a bad deal. At Matzevas Hashem Be'em Bekamelech, and he made himself the monument. From the depths of the king. This is part of the plan of the Malkish of the Eberster. What do you mean? Because it says, Hashem told David, I will actually cause that some terrible thing will happen from your own midst. And similarly, we find from the depths of Hebron, Yosef. It says that when Yaakov sent Yosef to the brothers, and that was the beginning of the story of the descent of Eden to Mitzrayim. We'll stop over here. We'll continue tomorrow in Mitzvah.